All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you're all having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take. Welcome in. This is the 2025 NFL season preview series where we are breaking down every NFL team, and I'll give you my prediction of how their 2025 season will go. And today, we got to talk about the Baltimore Ravens, a team that I think is going to be one of the teams to beat in 2025. Before we start breaking down their season and preview everything, if you guys don't know how this series works, I will explain it to you here in just a moment. For those of you that want to go ahead and jump right into the discussion, go right ahead. The video, the timestamp is in the video playhead and also in the video description. So if you want to go ahead, knock yourself out. But for those of you that don't know how the series works, we begin with quickly recapping 2024, what happened, how everything finished for them, and then we'll jump into their offseason, mention any changes that they made with their coaching staff, with their players, with free agency, who they added, who they lost, who they drafted in this past draft class, and then we'll jump into how I feel about this team. Do I think they're going to be good? Are they going to be bad, mid, strengths, weaknesses? Pretty much kind of giving my analysis on how I think this roster looks, and if this team's going to be any good or not. And then we'll jump into analyzing their schedule, looking at if it's easy, if it's difficult, looking at important matchups, along with looking at where do I have them finishing, a team finishing in their division, do they make the playoffs, and then ultimately we'll conclude with that, with my official win-loss prediction for each team. And then at the end of that, we'll wrap a bow on the whole episode, pretty much looking at some storylines and reasons why we'll be watching each team. Now we get into Baltimore and talking about the Ravens. 2024 for them was another fantastic year. They finished 12-5, bringing in Derrick Henry. He was better than advertised, had dang near a career year, running over 1,900 yards. Thankfully, or not so thankfully, Saquon Barkley decided to have an even better year, or Derrick Henry would have had another rushing crown to his name. And despite a slow start, the Ravens had too. They started 0-2, and their defense really started off rough. But the cool part about why I really liked the Ravens last year was because you could see their growth. You could see their development. We watch this team week to week get better and better and better to the point where they looked like a true Super Bowl contender once again, went into the playoffs, divisional round against Buffalo, neck and neck, and then Mark Andrews drops the ball. What's new for Baltimore, man? That was so heartbreaking. Jesus Christ, seeing it drop, like the game could not end like that, man. So now in 2025, the Ravens are hoping for a better finish than that. So going into their offseason, it starts with coaching. They brought in a flurry of new defensive coaches, highlighted specifically by Chuck Pagano as a senior assistant / secondary coach. This is a move that excites the heck out of me because Chuck Pagano is a great defensive back coach. For people that don't remember, he was the Indianapolis Colts head coach during the Andrew Luck era, so that's where most people probably know him, but he is a secondary guru. He came out of retirement to coach the secondary for the Baltimore Ravens, and I understand why. This is the most stacked secondary I have ever seen. Personally, all the talent that they have, which we'll break down here in a little bit, it's insane. It's insane. You pair that with a fantastic coach. Oh, man, like they are going all in here. They are really trying to make sure that this team can be the best it can possibly be. And that is so exciting. Seeing the Ravens, despite finishing where they finished, they still did try to do enough with the coaches and with the players to continue to get better. And I think they did get better in that way. They still got better, which is exciting. And then you look at their free agency, didn't do a whole lot. But again, they didn't need to do a whole lot anyways because their roster's already stacked, but they still got better. They added wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. They added Jair Alexander and Chidobe Awuzie. Those are really good football players to add to your team. Those are cherries on top, if you will. And then for depth, they added Cooper Rush as a backup. Very strong backup quarterback. And then a tackle, Joseph Noteboom, John Jenkins at defensive tackle, and then Jake Hummel at linebacker. They really didn't lose that much either, in my opinion. They did lose their linebacker. They lost 3 linebackers, so that depth is not as great now. But they lost Josh Johnson as their backup. fine. Probably the most notable loss is Michael Pierce, their defensive tackle. He ended up retiring. He had an interception last year against Cleveland. I don't know why I mentioned that, but it just came to mind. Him picking off, what was it, Bailey Zappi, I think it was on that play, which is pretty funny. But he retired, which is unfortunate. Patrick McCarry, their starting right guard, left to go to Jacksonville. He signed a 3-year deal over there. But they also lost Brandon Stevens. Now that I'm looking at it, he was a starter corner outside of Nate Wiggins on the outside. And so he left. He went to the New York Jets. And then Tre'Davious White. Honestly, when I was making the script, I completely forgot Tre'Davious White was on the Ravens, but he left. He's now in Buffalo now. They reunited over there to bring some veteran experience, which is important for them, especially with drafting Maxwell Harrison, the corner out of Kentucky, over in Buffalo. So not really much of losses, more than depth. They really didn't lose anybody truly important other than Michael Pierce, I don't think. I think they replaced who they lost pretty well for the most part. And so I would say that the free agents, even though they lost more than they gained, I would say it's a success. This roster is still absolutely stacked. I don't think it's any worse than what it was before for the most part. And then you get to their draft, where they got a lot of late round value, a lot of late round talent. But at the top of the draft, these first 3 draft picks are so exciting. Malachi Starks, best safety in this draft class. Pairing with Kyle Hamilton, I think these 2 safeties will probably be a top 10, if not top 5 safety duo by year's end. I think Malachi Starks fits really well with what Baltimore's trying to do. And with all the talent around Malachi Starks, he's not going to be pressured to absolutely ball out right away. So he's going to have time to get his feet wet, really adjust. And he's got veterans everywhere to help him grow and learn. So it's a very great situation for a guy like Malachi Starks to be in. And then you get second round edge rusher Mike Green out of Marshall, who fell to 59, I think is where they ended up picking him. Definitely late 50s. I'm positive about that. But this is a first-round talent right here. And they got him right at the end of the 50s. That's insanity. That's absolute insanity. What a freaking steal for the Baltimore Ravens. Say what you want about Mike Green and any off-the-field issues that he might have, whether you believe it's true or not. The thing is, getting a steal like that's important, and Baltimore has a really strong culture. They have a really strong team and a sense of winning and stuff like that. Whether you think Mike Green was guilty of whatever happened, I don't fully remember, if I'm being honest with you. But going to a team like Baltimore, very, very helpful. What a steal that the Ravens got there. And then, speaking of steal and big, you look at guard Emory Jones out of LSU. This guy, man, oh my God. Not only is he a massive human being, he has so much raw talent. He's a guy that's going to need to sit for a year or two and really be coached up and have his technique be refined. But good God, if this guy develops, he could really be one of the best guards in the NFL. He is so talented. It is the fact that they got him too. I think they got him in the 4th round too. Maybe they had drafted him in the 3rd, actually. No, I think it was 4th. Someone in the Baltimore Ravens fans, let me know in the comments. I can't remember off the top of my head at the moment. But getting Emory Jones, absolutely fantastic pick. I think he could be a really good guard. I'm excited about him. And then some of these other picks I'm really like. Teddy Buchanan to develop and build some depth in the back end from which they lost. Gotta like that. Carson Vincent, I think, has some solid talent. I don't think that he's going to be starting anytime soon unless Ronnie Stanley, I don't know, did he just sign a contract extension though? I think, Ronnie Stanley just signed a contract extension, I think. And then their right tackles, Roger Rosengarten, so I don't think he's going anywhere. And so after that, they drafted cornerback Bilal Cohn as depth. It's good. And then kicker Tyler Loop. They cut Justin Tucker. He had some pretty bad allegations against him. And considering he probably had the worst year as the Ravens starting kicker, even though it was still a pretty good year statistically, they let him go. And so now Tyler Loop is going to be the guy. And it's going to be very important for the Baltimore Ravens, because one thing that the Baltimore Ravens have always had throughout their ups and their downs is stability at the kicker position. And given how good Justin Tucker has been, statistically probably the greatest kicker of all time, not named Adam Vinatieri right now, so Tyler Loop's got some pretty big shoes to fill, but I'm excited to see what he can do. He's going to have a lot of pressure, but they drafted him. They believe in him, so I have reason to believe in him as well. And then they just drafted more depth on the back end. Wide receiver LaJohntay Wester, defensive lineman Aeneas Peebles. They also added another corner, Robert Longerbeam, which that's a really cool last name. And then they finished with guard Garrett Dellinger. So added really good depth in this draft class for them. Guys that have good upside, guys that they like to develop. This is a really good draft class for the Baltimore Ravens, especially at the top of those first 3 picks. Insanity, the value that they got there. So is this roster improved? Yes, it is. It is a improved roster for sure. I like what they added in the draft. I like who they brought in free agency. They didn't lose a whole lot in free agency anyways. So I am really, really excited for what this team is going to do. And I think that this team is going to be great. This should be one of the Ravens' best shots at a Super Bowl that they've had here in the Lamar Jackson era. I truly believe that. I truly believe that this is a Super Bowl contender through and through. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This might be the best roster that the Ravens have ever had in the Lamar Jackson era. Absolutely stacked just about everywhere. I have them going back to the AFC Championship at minimal. They have too much talent to not make it back. There's simply too much. I cannot buy in to the Baltimore Ravens losing in the divisional round, losing in the wild card round if they manage to fall to that spot. I don't think they do. But they need to go back to the AFC Championship at least. I think this year could really be the best shot they have at a Super Bowl, and I think they might actually do it this year. It is very, very close, and I think the Ravens are right now, I would say, are the best team in the conference. They're the best team in the AFC right now on paper, and outside of Buffalo, there's not many other teams that can really stand up to Baltimore in that department. So looking at their strengths, just about everything. Quarterback, running back, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers are good. Secondary, best secondary I've ever seen. So, I mean, they are loaded on their roster. Absolutely freaking stacked. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I am so hyped and excited to see what all these pieces can do working together. This should be a very memorable year for the Baltimore Ravens. But there is a couple issues I do have with this roster. Just for the sake of the argument, just for the sake of being fair and being objective, their true one position weakness is wide receiver. The wide receiver core of Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, and Rashad Bateman is not great. But the thing is, the Baltimore Ravens have 2 really good tight ends in Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. They have a really good running game. They have enough talent, along with a great offensive line. They have more than enough talent to circumvent the wide receivers not being too great. But then again, Zay Flowers, one of the best young receivers in the NFL right now. Very quick, very agile. Definitely has developed really well. And then DeAndre Hopkins, as a veteran, I think he's going to be a 700, 800-yard guy. Still going to be solid, play a lot of snaps, be a contributor, right? Be a veteran presence, doing everything that DeAndre Hopkins is known to do. And then Rashad Bateman, he's been around for a while in Baltimore. They like him as a solid third option. Fine by me. He knows the offense, so they know what to expect out of him. I can respect it. Fine by me. And then these next 2 ones are kind of nitpicky, if I'm being really honest with you. Right guard, it's just a new starter, Daniel Falele, because Patrick McCarry left. But considering that they have Roger Rosengarten at right tackle, and their center is also fantastic, I really don't know. I think Roger Rosengarten. Yeah, no, Roger Rosengarten. No, Tyler Linderbaum's the center. Roger Rosengarten is the right tackle. But having those 2 guys next to you is going to help Daniel Falele a whole lot, especially over this year. I think he's going to play well. I think he's going to be fine. But because it's more of an unknown, I have it as a weakness right now. But again, very nitpicky. And the other one is the backup defensive tackles, just because they're going to have to step up this year with Michael Pierce retiring. Do they do that? I don't know. We'll have to see it. But the depth at the defensive tackle spot is good anyways. So it's not really too much of a weakness to where, oh yeah, this is something that teams are going to exploit. I don't think that. Like I said, these 2 are very nitpicky. Wide receiver is probably the worst part of this team on top of a fantastically built roster. So let's go into their schedule. Because their schedule, as you look at it now on screen, is a tough one, and rightfully so. But they do have factors that swing in their favor, though. Let's start with how their schedule actually looks. They need to start out hot, because 5 out of their first 6 games are against playoff teams. You're talking about the Bills, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Texans, and the Rams. And then the Browns, they got upset by the Browns last year, early in the year. earlier in the year. So that game is not a gimme. Even though it's at home, they should win that game. But it is a divisional rival, so you always got to keep your head up a little bit more when you're facing someone like that, like the Browns, even though I think they're going to be garbage this year. But outside of that, their middle schedule is a lot better. You're talking about a week 7 going into the bye week after that stretch. Then you come off the bye to host Chicago. That's very helpful. The Chicago Bears, I think, are going to be a better football team this year than last year. But I think Baltimore has the talent to be able to beat them. And I think this is going to be a pretty fun football game. And then you go on the road to face the Miami Dolphins. I think you win that one. Then you face the Minnesota Vikings. That's going to be a fun football game. But I think the Ravens are better. They win that football game. Then they go on the road to face the Browns. I think they beat the Browns on the road. Then you face the Jets. I have them beating the Jets. And then you get to this last part of the season where they got to lock it down again, because Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are 4 out of your last 6 games. That's 4 divisional games. Those were tough. The last 2 times the Ravens faced off, it was 2 of the best games of the entire year. They were fantastic. And then Pittsburgh and Baltimore, they usually split, just like they did last year. So those 4 games are going to be very, very important. And then you got the Patriots, who are going to be competitive. Mike Vrabel has success playing against Lamar Jackson and game planning against him, so that's going to be something to notice. And they're playing late in the year, and I've said it multiple times in multiple videos that if you're facing the New England Patriots, I would much rather face Mike Vrabel earlier in the year than later in the year. And then you go on the road to face Green Bay. That's going to be a tough matchup. I think the Packers are going to be good again this year. So the last handful of games, last 6 games, are tough. It is a really, really tough stretch. And with the divisional games, you can make the argument that it's even tougher than the first 6 games. So they got to start off hot, and they really got to finish strong. The middle third of their season, I have no issues with. I think they're going to come out of that pretty darn well. They probably lose 1 at most. So that's very confident. I'm just putting a lot of confidence into the Ravens this year. But they do have the talent. They have the ability to navigate this roster. And one thing that really does fall in their favor, even though the majority of their games are on the road after their bye week, they travel one of the fewest miles in total of any NFL team this year. I think the furthest they got to go is like Kansas City or Minnesota. That's the furthest they got to go. They don't got to go out to the West Coast this year for anything because they're hosting the Rams, so they really don't got to go much of anywhere. Maybe Green Bay is the farthest. I mean, Green Bay. No, Minnesota's farther than Green Bay, I think. Or I might be flipping them. Either way, it's those 2 teams or Kansas City. Kansas City's probably the farthest team that's got to go out. But even then, a lot of they stay close. I mean, they go to Buffalo. That's not very far. They go to Cleveland. Obviously, that's not very far. Miami. That's a far drive. That might be the farthest one. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. But again, they have success playing against the Miami Dolphins, so I'm not too worried about that. And then going to Green Bay, not super far. Steelers, not super far. I mean, they have have it going pretty good for them going on the road, so they don't have to go very far, which is very helpful for them for their fatigue and their health, all that stuff you cannot quantify. So their most important matchups are Week 1 at the Bills, the Chiefs Week 4, Vikings Week 10, Week 17 at the Packers, not including any divisional matchups. These games are important because obviously these are the 4 of the hardest teams that they have to face on their schedule, along with the Rams. I'll throw them in there as well because the Ravens are supposed to be, in my opinion, they're going to be the best team in the AFC this year record-wise. And so they need to play well and beat most of these teams as a team, and the best of the AFC would do. And I think they do that. I think they win a majority of these games. Against Buffalo, I think they beat Buffalo Week 1, get revenge after that terrible loss in the divisional round last year. Against Kansas City, that's going to be a tough one because I don't know if they win in Kansas City. It's not just that the Kansas City Chiefs are good at home, it's that they also have some red or some black and white striped individuals helping them as well. But Week 10 of the Vikings is going to be challenging because their roster is really good. Their defense is good. Their offensive weapons are great. The only question mark is J.J. McCarthy, but the Ravens, I think, have the defense to help get pressure on J.J. McCarthy and make him uncomfortable. And then Week 17 of the Packers, another really good football team. So, I mean, they got their work cut out for them, but I think they have the ability to navigate it very, very well. And divisional-wise, obviously, I have them finishing first. I have them having the best record in the AFC, so why would they not? And then, of course, making the playoffs, having the number 1 seed in the AFC. And my official record prediction for the Baltimore Ravens this year is bam, 13-4. I am hyped for this team. I think this will be one of the best Ravens teams we've seen in a long time. I think they're going to shock some people. I think they're going to be fantastic. They're going to be fun. They're going to be interesting from week 1 to week 18 all the way to the playoffs. And I have them going back to the AFC Championship at minimum. This team is too talented to not make it back. So let's look at some storylines for the Ravens and talk about why I'm going to be watching them, because there's a lot. Number one, not really the biggest one, but Joe Flacco coming back to Baltimore to face Baltimore in week 2. As I drop my script, I apologize. So second time he's coming back to Baltimore to face the Ravens in his old stadium where he had a lot of great years with the Ravens. So that's going to be an interesting storyline to look at week 2. But I mentioned their toughest games on their schedule. How they compete is going to be very important because obviously I have them being the best team in the AFC. I have them going 13-4. They need to not just be competitive. They need to win a majority of these games. And so to see how they perform in their toughest games, that's going to be very telling of how deep in the playoffs this team is going to go. And then the third one is to not stagnate. One thing that this team did good last year, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is that this team had real progression. They started off slow, but you could see them get better and better and better every single week. And even though this roster's improved and better than what it was last year, they cannot stagnate. They need to continue to get better every single week. I don't think it's going to be that drastic of a jump, but week 1 and week 18, there should be still some definitive, noticeable growth in this team. They cannot stagnate. I think that would not be good for them. So seeing that even though they're stacked, they still have room to get better and improve. So if we still see the Baltimore Ravens improving, that's going to be really, really positive and encouraging. And then another one, they have 8 starters on the last year of their contract, and kind of like Pittsburgh, they have over 40 players going to be impending free agents. So this year, they really need to make it count because a lot of their starters, a lot of their depth is going to be gone. So this year makes it that much more. It makes it that much more important for this year for them to really make it count. So that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at. Do they actually make the most of this opportunity? And then lastly, kind of backing off of that, can they finally just not shoot themselves in the foot in the playoffs? Every year, Baltimore gets in, they look like they could be the team that goes all the way, and then whether it's Lamar Jackson or somebody else like Mark Andrews last year, something happens, they shoot themselves in the foot, and they end up losing a game that they should win. Most of these games that they lose, they're games that they should win. And so if they don't shoot themselves in the foot, they can probably win and go to the Super Bowl. I think they can do that, but it's going to be very important that they don't do that and they do not make any mistakes. That is one thing. The Baltimore Ravens, they'll make a mistake, and instead of fixing it, they usually in the playoffs will compound it with more mistakes. So it's going to be interesting to see when that first turnover happens, or if they go down by 2 scores. Is this team going to forget about everything that happened, or they're going to rise above what rise above the adversity, or are they going to fall flat again? It's going to be tough. It's going to be interesting to watch, but the Ravens, I'm very excited to watch this year. I'm really excited about how they're going to grow, how much better they're going to be, even though they're really good now. I'm very, very excited. I'm excited for the Ravens. I think this is the best shot they've had at a Super Bowl in a very, very long time. So that is going to do it for me today with this discussion, guys. I hope you all have enjoyed. And if you've made it this far, please consider hitting the like button and the subscribe button. It helps the channel out tremendously as we pass 100 subscribers. Thank you all again. And we're trying to reach 500 before the end of the 2025 regular season. So we got a few months to get there. We got plenty of time. So hit those 2 buttons. Help a guy out. Help out the community. It is free. And if it's free, it's for me. You guys know what I'm saying. Can't turn down something that's completely free. And then also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think the Ravens go to the Super Bowl this year? Do you think they find a way to shoot themselves in the foot again? Do you think that maybe they're not as good? If there's some people that really aren't as high on the Ravens as I am, I don't know if there's many of you out there, but maybe if you're like a Steelers fan or a Bengals fan, maybe. But let me know all your thoughts about the Ravens in the comments. Lastly, make sure you share this video and also follow me on social media, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that good stuff. Make sure to go follow me there. I'm going to be coming out with some clips, not from the show, but pretty much summaries of these season preview videos on there coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that if any of you guys are interested. But for now, hope you guys have enjoyed. And as always, I will see you all next time.